Hi, Danville. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police for the town, and we are 10-8 and in service, which means we're here to safeguard the lives, rights, and property of the people we serve, and we do that in an effort to make people's lives better. We've got a lot we're going to cover on the show today. We're going to cover DUI and what child abuse is as it's associated with that, but we're going to go over the annual report a little bit, and we're going to cover some good stuff, so make sure you stay tuned. If you like and continue to want to see this content, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page on YouTube. As always, we want you to download this FEMA All Hazards Guide. That, along with our Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide, will greatly help you to prepare for these really infrequent events, but the ones that can cause a significant amount of heartache and damage. And so we want you to be as prepared as you can. Make sure you sign up for the Sheriff's Office Community Warning System and download that Wildfire Preparedness Evacuation Guide. The Community Warning System is how you're going to be notified of a critical event. The Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide is going to help you plan for your family, yourself, and even your pets. And then make sure you go to the PG&E website. There's good information there as well on how to be prepared. And then when the events happen, you can actually get updates. We just wrapped up a couple weeks ago. We wrapped up our Citizens Academy. That's for our adults. We are offering a couple for teens, and we offer two different ones. One is for like junior high level, one's for high school level. And the Teen Academy is going to run from, and I apologize, I need to correct the dates here. It's June 24th through 27th, not July. So June 24th through 27th. And then that's for our high school age kids. And then the Friday, June 28th, it's not July, but June 28th, we're going to have it available for kids 11 to 14. And you can sign up online for that. So really good information there. This is a live show. So if you have any questions or comments, you can ask them live during the show, and I'll make sure to work on an answer live. Many times I can answer it right during the show itself. Otherwise, I can also get it in the chat afterwards, so you will get an answer. All right, we're going to move on to the Community Crime Map. So this is communitycrimemap.com. This is where you can get updated information on crime in your area. It uploads several times a day. You can zoom in and set an alert for your community. You can also get sexual offender registry information there as well. Collisions, not a great week, not a bad week. We had 3 injury collisions and a hit and run. On the 21st, we had a vehicle that backed into a pedestrian. So this was a pedestrian that was getting into their car. The vehicle backed into them in the Smart and Final parking lot, and they had minor injuries. On the 22nd, we had a 2-vehicle injury collision. This was on Camino Tasajara and Blackhawk Circle, kind of up there by Safeway. And then on the 23rd, we had a 2-vehicle injury collision on Crow Canyon Road near Centerway, so just on the other side of that. On the 23rd, we had a non-injury hit and run of a parked car in the Costco parking lot. As far as crime, 2 thefts and a vehicle theft. That's it. So not much at all. Theft of merchandise from Safeway on Camino Tas, and that was at about 1:17 p.m. And this is the trend. If you notice, last week I covered 2 weeks worth, and we had some thefts, and it was at Bevmo, and I think it might have been Safeway as well. Costco, actually. It was Bevmo and Costco. And it was always about that 1, 2, 3 o'clock hour, and it was alcohol. And so we understand, we recognize that is a trend, and there is a similarity between the description of the people committing the theft. On the 21st, we had a theft of a vehicle from a home on Matadera Way, and that was at 3:15 in the morning. That vehicle was later recovered in Oakland that night, so the night of the 21st. On the 23rd, there was a theft of a bicycle on Laurel and Brookside, and it was later determined that it was recovered during a previous investigation and where that suspect was identified. And this isn't uncommon. This is why we ask, if you are a victim of theft, or even if you think it's lost property, maybe it's not even stolen, report it as soon as you can. In this case, our officers had already contacted a transient, found him with 2 bicycles, and we collected those bicycles as safekeeping. It turns out then a little while later, this person reports that their bike had been stolen. We still had it downstairs in our evidence and property, and we were able to get it, and we can get it back to the owner because we've got good ID on it. Part of being able to do that is being able to recognize the bike. If you just tell us it's a Trek mountain bike, there's lots of Trek mountain bikes out there, lots of giant mountain bikes out there, we're not going to be able to know. The best thing you can do is and this is what I do with mine. I just use my phone, and as soon as I get a new bike, I take my camera app right there, and I just take a picture of the serial number, and then I've got the serial number forever. And it's pretty easy to look up because I can look it up by location, by date. I usually can remember about when I bought a bike, or I just throw it in a photo folder with all my serial numbers in it. So if you're looking for any property that I think is walkable, that might find legs and walk away, I usually have a picture of the serial number. So in this case, the person was able to describe it in such detail that we were able to identify it. We, before booking it, took pictures of the serial number, and we were able to get it to where we can get it back to the owner. All right, so on to the arrest log. Not much, but a lot to talk about in both of these. On the 23rd, we had an arrest of a woman for organized retail theft, and that was after she was found to be in possession of several items from Danville area stores. So if we take a look, I'll kind of give you the big picture here. So if you look, that's one of our patrol cars. That was from the active officer. He's actually our problem-oriented police officer. That's a specialized position that goes out and targets problems in the community. And he was out on patrol, and he actually saw, through our license plate system, he saw this person who was a repeat offender come back into town. He was able to identify a cause for the stop, made the stop, and then was able to recover all of this property. So if you take a look, that's a lot of property. There's bagfuls of property there. If you look, once we have it laid out, it's a lot of property there. And so he was able to recover that, arrest that person, and hold them accountable. So that's a good theft, for a good arrest for us. It really speaks to a couple things. One is we do have a proactive nature in what we do. I get it that, crime is committed, say at a store, we react and respond to it, but we're always looking for common threads. We're looking for ways that we can use the information that we know to prevent future crime. We know that this ALPR camera system is of great value because this is, as an example, we were able to put this person's plate in to our system and say that, hey, this is someone that is a frequent violator. And then we were able to get to them before they were actually able to commit a fresh or new crime here in Danville. The property that you see is from recent thefts that they had just committed outside of Danville, but they had yet to commit some here in town. So good job on the officer's part. Good job on our camera system, but it really shows how hard our officers work to make this a safe city. All right. And then on the 26th, we had a woman that was cited for DUI and child abuse. And I know that can kind of raise the eyebrow. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. The child abuse itself is actually related to the DUI. And all of that occurred when the officers stopped her in response to a citizen reporting that the person was reckless driving. So a lot of times you may call in and you may see someone swerving or speeding or in some way driving what you feel to be reckless. This is the result of one of those calls where someone called in and said, I think I see something that's very unsafe. And this really speaks to the power of community and the willingness of people to step up and say, I think I see something wrong, and then direct us to where it is. And sometimes we've been in situations where we get that call that someone's driving erratic, and we turn to find out that they're tired, right? And that can be just as dangerous as drunk driving, right? And so maybe it gives us an opportunity to intervene before something bad happens. In this particular case, a woman was driving while under the influence. While she was there, she had her child in the car. And that can be, based on the circumstances, it can be a condition for child abuse. So what I wanted to do is I pulled out a section of the California jury instructions. And this is when someone goes to court, this is what a judge reads the jury that you would then use, if you were on the jury, that you would then use as your decision-making matrix. It's how you would come to determine whether or not you feel, based on the evidence, is the person guilty or innocent. So I thought we'd just take a look at it so you could see how a child abuse case could be wrapped into a DUI. All right, so let's look at child abuse. So, and I cut off some of the first sections of the misdemeanor child abuse section. It's Penal Code 273A, subsection B. The defendant, and this is the driver of the car, while having care or custody of a child, willfully caused or permitted the child to be placed in a situation where the child's person or health was endangered, and the defendant was criminally negligent when he or she caused or permitted the child to, and then it says suffer or be injured, or in this case, be endangered. And the defendant did not act while reasonably disciplining the child. And then it goes on to help provide some definitions here that can help further define whether or not you feel the person would be guilty or innocent of this crime. And it says someone commits an act willfully when he or she does it willingly or on purpose. So in other words, this isn't an accident. Having your child in the car and driving while drunk is a willful act. It is something that's done on purpose. It's not done by accident. A child simply is someone under the age of 18. And then if we look, it talks about that he or she acts in a reckless way that is a gross departure from the way an ordinarily careful person would act in the same situation, and the person's acts amount to disregard for human life or indifference to the consequences of his or her acts. And this is the one that balances it out pretty well. And it says, and a reasonable person would have known that acting in that way would naturally and probably result in harm to others. And that's the you should have known better rule, right? We look at it and we can see that. And this is where that is what I use when trying to help people make decisions. We call it left of bang. Bang is the moment of impact. That's when something bad happens, or in this case, when something bad was intercepted. If you have someone that's at a party, maybe they're going to the party and they're drinking and they're doing these things, they can't view it from the situation they're in. And that's the situation we typically tend to do. We say, okay, well, I've only had a few drinks, or and we start to rationalize and reason, and we start to kind of find a path that we feel justifies our behavior. And what we have to do is break that, because if you look, a reasonable person would have known that acting in that way would naturally and probably result in harm to others. It can also be called the Monday morning quarterback, right? This is where, when you look at it, if we could put ourselves into the future and this was blasted on the front page of the news, would we make that same decision? And if the answer is no, then don't do it in the moment. And it's a way to try to inject some reasoning. All right. I'm checking the chat. I don't see anything. Let me ask you this. We've done this where we've taken penal code sections and we've broken them out before, and we describe them so that you can better understand the law, at least in how law enforcement applies it. And I'm not an attorney, not a legal expert. We don't give legal advice, but I wanted to provide you with some of the information that we use when determining in the field, should we make this arrest? Should we not? And that is one of the resources that we use. So do me a favor, in the chat, if you like breakdowns like that, where I go over, the jury instructions for a specific crime, like we've covered self-defense before. In this case, we've covered child abuse. If that's something you like, please let me know in the comments by saying, let's have more breakdowns of crimes, or whatever you would say to that. All right, we're going to cover the annual report. This is going to be the last installment of the annual report, and probably, arguably the most important. This is where we cover our volunteers. You've seen them at special events. You see them driving around cars. They're the ones that do your vacation house checks, and those are our volunteers in police services. These are unpaid volunteers, and I'll zoom in a little bit to the picture here because I really want you to focus in on the volunteers themselves. That's a small portion of our group. We've got about 25 of them, and they're the ones that dedicate themselves. If you think about it, a lot of people that walk the halls here, they get paid to come here every day. These volunteers are unpaid. They do it because they love the community. They love all of you, and they want to provide a good service. And they go out and they do regular patrols. So that means they get in a car that says volunteer services. They will do vacation house checks. If you fill one out online, our volunteers are the ones that go to your house. When they find your front door open because the person watching your house has left it unlocked, they're the ones that call you and say, hey, your front door is unlocked. They're also the ones that act as a force multiplier for us. And I can recall several years ago now, I was downtown at Harvest. We're eating dinner. I'm with my wife, my brother, and his wife. And we keep seeing cop cars go by downtown, and they just keep going by and keep going by. And we know that having a visible presence is a deterrence for all sorts of crimes, for commercial burglaries, for theft, for driving under the influence. We know that it's a deterrence. Well, my brother looks over and he asks me, he's like, how many cops do you have patrolling downtown? What he didn't know was that was one officer, and then that was one volunteer car. And the volunteer car simply provides a visible presence and an extra set of eyes in the area. So great job that they do to help us out there. All right. Another set of volunteers we have that you wouldn't know it just by looking at them. And those are our reserve officers. And the front row is some of our admin staff, and you'll see Joe Calabriga, our town manager, and I'm poking in the back there. But our reserve officers are the ones that, frankly, they look no different than I am. They're dressed in the blue uniform. They drive patrol cars out in the field. They have peace officer powers. They can make arrests. They can respond to calls. They can do transports. They can close roads for us when we have like natural disasters like the floods and all that. They're instrumental there. They perform every function that our patrol officers do, with one exception. They just don't collect the paycheck for it. They do it absolutely for free. So these are people that have regular day jobs. They go out and they work and they support their families and they do all that. And on top of that, they come in and they do police work on their own behalf. And you'll see them out at our special events, our 4th of July parade. They were out at our Devil Mountain Run. But you just don't notice that they're any different because they have the same appearance as our police officers, because they are police officers. And we couldn't do what we do without them. I'll give you my pitch here. That is a dwindling force. It takes a lot of dedication and a lot of time commitment to do it. So if you or someone you know wants to help us and be a reserve officer, it is a great and fulfilling career. We've had upwards in the county, we've had upwards of 100 to 150 at times. We're down quite a bit now. It is a very challenging career field to get into. It requires a lot of dedication and a high level of ethics. But if you're interested, there is a link down in the description to our recruiting page, and you can find links for that there. All right. Well, how do you stay connected to Danville? So we've made it one of our goals to try to meet you where you're at. So we don't decide, hey, we're here on 10/8 and this is the only place you can meet us. So what we do is we try to meet you where you're at. So if you look, we have our own webpage. We're on Facebook. We just launched Instagram this year, thanks to Lindsay Ortiz, our community outreach coordinator. We're on YouTube. Genesis Protect, that's Zonehaven. That's where you can get updates on evacuation orders and warnings and such. Community warning system is how we communicate our natural disasters and such. And then Nixle is the one where you get those text alerts to your phone. And that's where we would communicate road closures and disasters and things like that. And so there's lots of ways that you can stay connected and stay plugged in to what we do. As far as awards, so we do give out a few awards throughout the year. At the end of the year, we give out our annual awards, and Officer Greg Drolet was our Officer of the Year. And he got it really for two reasons. And the first was he responded to a pretty significant event where a car had overturned and was fully engulfed, and there were people unconscious in the car. And he, as well as his team members, reached inside and reached past the flames, the heat, and the smoke, and pulled people out that otherwise would not have been able to function and get out on their own. So he saved people's lives, bottom line. The other side is how many lives has he saved by doing his driving under the influence enforcement. He's our top cop when it comes to DUI enforcement, and he'll be recognized later on this year by MAD for that. Officer Kara Leffel received our Ernie Kern Award, and that's due to her exceptional work with at-risk youth. She has made it her mission to bond with and have meaningful relationships with youth. And in one particular case, there was a youth that was at severe risk, and although Kara was at home, she took the call from one of her partners, and through a little bit of conversation and connection with this person was able to talk them out of a pretty critical situation. So kudos to Kara for doing the work that she does. Our kids all benefit from her. Michael Kinzer is our Reserve Officer of the Year. And he's a full-time employee to his primary job and does well for his family and support, and still is able to find time as a volunteer to come in here on nights and weekends to provide us a lot of service. Mike can be seen when we had floods. He could be seen on our weekend shifts helping out with patrols and transports. And anytime we've had any critical events, we're able to call Mike, and Mike comes down and helps us out. He's a great team member and provides a lot of service to the community. Karen Newsom is our Volunteer in Police Service of the Year, our VIPs of the Year. And that is one of our volunteers who, Karen specifically, stepped up a great deal. I don't know where she found all the time, but we had a critical staffing shortage in our administration part of the police department. So those are the people, when you come into the police department, those are the people that you'll see and meet at the front counter, and will help you, and they'll release property and tows and all those sort of things. And it seemed like over a great period of time, we were relying on Karen to provide that service in addition to the patrols and the special event coverage that she was doing. So she, for a while there, I think she was wearing a full-time employee hat, but really stepped up. And then the side that goes unnoticed at times, which I really appreciate from Karen, is she actually is an excellent community liaison. She's one of the members of the community that really provides a great deal of communication between her community within Danville and the police department. And she represents the police department and her community very well. So well deserved for Karen. Our employee of the quarter, I always like to call these the People's Choice Awards. These are the ones where they're nominated by people internal to the police department for the hard work and the dedication that they show. You'll see some familiar names here. For the first quarter, it was Alexis Lemus. That was actually my administrative assistant. She's moved on to a higher job here at the police department. Greg Drolet, that was our officer of the year. He was the second quarter. Kara Leffel, our Ernie Kern Award winner for the third quarter. And then Sergeant Veronique Balea was our fourth quarter employee of the quarter, and she is our investigations supervisor. She's the one that handles all the big cases and makes sure that they get followed up properly. And she also supervises our school resource officers. All right, so Colleen, I'm going to hit some of the questions here. I see some questions popping up, and I want to make sure I get to those. I don't think I'm going to have some answers for you, and I'll have to look some of those up. Colleen says, any progress on solving the home burglaries throughout 94506? I don't have a great answer for you on that. Let me talk to the investigations group upstairs and see the status on that. And what I can release, I will throw in the chat here. Martha says, yes, interesting and helpful to know the details of the laws. Good. Okay, we'll do more of those. Maybe we'll get some of the most common ones and we'll start plugging those in. So thanks. And Martha, thanks for being a long-time viewer and a Academy graduate. In fact, Martha, I mentioned you at the last Academy because I always ask a couple of questions at the end of the Academy. The first question I ask is, what can we do better to provide service to the community? Now that you've seen everything we do, what can we do better? The second is, how can we make this a more meaningful experience to people as they come through? Well, Martha and her partner were here and they had the suggestion. They're like, hey, we do this scenario thing where I think it was Ohio, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we do this scenario thing where we were from, and it was really impactful. And it was kind of you are the officer, and we go to the range and all this. And frankly, we were a little fearful of doing that. There's a little bit of risk associated with that. And you have to do a great deal of planning, but we jumped in. And frankly, Martha, that advice was some of the best advice to improve our program. And we've given that same advice to others in the area. But when we do those surveys at the end and we ask we ask everybody what was the most impactful thing, 9 times out of 10, it is based on your suggestion. It is those field exercises. It is going to the range and doing that. So Martha, great job. Keep the suggestions coming. Larry, appreciate it. We like the jury instructions. Carlo as well. Great job done by Greg. Were charges filed against the driver? Larry, only because I don't know which, were you talking about the arrest for the drunk driver, or were you talking about the overturned vehicle? Let me know which one you're talking about. Okay, Martha, Massachusetts, but all good. Okay, maybe I'm a little overloaded on Tom Brady or something. I don't know. All right, we're going to move on, and this is a hot topic one here. We're moving on to a hot topic. I'm getting a lot of emails, getting a lot of information on this. And last week, if you remember, we covered e-scooters and where they can ride and where they can't, who can ride them. We're in that same theme. We're talking about e-scooters, e-bikes, e-motorcycles. And I think what happens is people are calling them as an umbrella. They're calling them all e-bikes. And if you remember, I'll put it up here, but there are so many different categories of mopeds, motor-driven cycles, motorcycles, off-highway motorcycles, scooters, class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. There are so many different rules, and frankly, it can be really challenging to understand. So what we're doing is we're breaking it down. We're also making some trifolds. So we're actually going to be handing these out to some of the kids, and in there, it'll have information on the different types of vehicles, off-highway motorcycles, class 1, 2s, and 3s, motorized and mopeds, motorcycles. So you'll have all that so people can look and say, okay, which vehicle do I have? What should I be doing? And what we're going to cover right now is we're going to cover these off-highway motorcycles. And that is the vehicle code term used, off-highway motorcycle. Really what they are for all intents and purposes, they're dirt bikes. So let's just take a look. These are what some of them look like now. These are the newer versions. These are not the gas-powered. These are the electric ones. And sometimes they'll be equipped with some lights. Sometimes they won't. The bottom line is they are defined by their inability to be on the road. They're off-highway motorcycles. They are not allowed to be anywhere on the road. Now, the two categories in the chart that we're going to look at, this is the main chart that we've been using to describe the different vehicles and who can ride them and where they can ride. We're going to be looking at these two categories. The first is the column headers, and it's going to have the category that we're looking at. And the third from the bottom is the off-highway motorcycle. So we're going to take a look at there. So max speed, there is no max speed because these can be ridden anywhere, off-road at any speed. They cannot be ridden in the road. And so there is no regulation for speed because they're not ridden on the road. Minimum age and driver's license, none needed because they're not allowed on the road. Helmet required, yes. And they're required, the person riding these are required to have a DOT approved helmet. So this is not a bicycle helmet. This is an actual motorcycle helmet, and it has to be conspicuously marked as a DOT approved helmet. Is it allowed on bike paths and trails? No. And absolutely not on the Iron Horse Trail. They are not allowed on the Iron Horse Trail, even contrary to the wheelies that I see going up and down the trail by some of our high school age kids. Are they allowed on the sidewalks or allowed on the roadway? No. Yeah, they're not allowed anywhere. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but let me put them back up. If you're riding one of these on the road, in the park, on the sidewalk, on the Iron Horse Trail, you're committing a crime. It's illegal. You're not allowed to ride those anywhere. And what makes these a little bit unique is they are considered a vehicle per the vehicle code. So the scooter, if you're riding the scooter and you don't have your license or permit, then we issue a citation. Maybe we take the property as safekeeping, but we don't tow it like with a tow truck. With these are vehicles, they can get towed per the vehicle code. So if you're driving them on the roadway and they're not licensed, so they're not licensed to be on the road, they can be towed, and the driver can be cited for driving without a license if they do not have one. So please, these belong nowhere in our parks. I should not see these at Osage doing wheelies in the middle of the park. I certainly shouldn't see them going down Harts Avenue like I have, and I've seen them parked in front of some of our businesses. And I'm not making a guaranteed promise, but we're moving from the education phase to enforcement. So what our officers are being directed to do this week and next week is to post up along those routes where we're seeing a lot of these violations. They're directed to start handing these out, and for egregious violations, start writing tickets and impounding and towing vehicles. So please, I would have my best day be where there's no tickets written, no vehicles impounded, and none towed. So that's my preference. However, knowing that these vehicles are, going 30, 40 miles an hour on the Iron Horse Trail, that they're doing that down the middle of Harts Avenue, that they're doing wheelies, they're riding recklessly, that they're causing accidents, we will absolutely step into enforcement. So please get the word out. Just please spread the word out. We would much rather have compliance and move on to some of the arrests that you've seen, like for our organized retail theft. We would rather focus there, but I can't have a young child who's wearing an ill-fitting bicycle helmet riding a motorcycle at 45 miles an hour down the Iron Horse Trail crack his head open. That's something we can't allow to occur. Okay. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. And I know a lot of times I actually receive complaints where the complaint usually starts with, what is it going to take for someone to die for you to do something? Absolutely not in this case. Okay. Absolutely not. These violations are pretty egregious. Again, not trying to be the fun police. I've ridden motorcycles. There's a place to ride them. It's not downtown. If this were 10 years ago and you were riding a motorcycle that looked just like this and it had a 2-stroke gas motor on it, we'd be stopping you for that too. Just because it has an electric motor, it does not make it an e-bike. This is a motorcycle. It is not allowed to be on the roads. I can't say that more strongly. So Larry, thank you on the response here. So Larry says it's the Starbucks overturned vehicle after evading police. Larry, believe it or not, that case is still with the DA's office. I checked on that last week, wanting to know the same question you had: is it filed yet? And it's still with the DA's office. All right, and I'm looking for any other So Carlo noticed the Cybertrucks behind me. I'm just a little, apparently I like Cybertrucks, I guess, but just a weird fan. I know everybody's got a polarized opinion on them. I happen to like them. And our IT manager actually made that one on his 3D printer. So I thought it was pretty cool. All right. That looks like that is all we have. If you have any other questions, and I think I owe Colleen, I'm going to go upstairs and I'll ask our investigators, and then I'll type your answer for the progress on solving home burglaries throughout 94506. I'll put that down in the chat. All right. Again, we've got our Teen Academy coming up. I'll correct the date next week. It's June 24th through 27th, not July. So June 24th through 27th. And then the day after is our one-day academy, and that's for our junior high or middle school folks. Make sure you sign up for the community warning system, download the Wildfire Preparedness Evacuation Guide, go check out the PG&E website, and download the FEMA All Hazards Guide. All of those have links in the description. Those will all be favorable to you should there be some kind of a disaster. All right, that is all I've got. With that, we're 10:10, which means we're off duty, but we're always 10:08 in service to all of you. Have a good day, Danville.